So, it's the first day of October. Yay! Which means it's the Kalends. If you are curious to see what that means, what I'm doing, what I'm getting into, what I've got planned, how my September went, and what else happened, then stay tuned. I'm Aradia Nawari. I'm your resident witch and creatrix over to Radia's Hand and Danae's Divine, where I create myth, magic, and meaning for your everyday life through art, intuition, and energy work. And on the first of the month, we do the Kalendcast. So, a little background for those who are new and maybe have never seen one of these before. The Kalendcast is one of my monthly casts on my Patreon, along with the Bujo setup, the studio share, the lunar cast, the Sabbath cast if there is one, and the Celtic cast. And then I think that's all of them. But I only do those once a month, although the lunar cast technically is done twice a month. And sometimes the Celtic cast is actually done twice a month. I think this month it was too. But because there was one yesterday. Anyway, and there was one the 2nd, I think. Fine, and then Ivy. Anyway, I like to mark the beginning of the month because it's numerologically significant. The first is the beginning. It is the catalyst. It's getting you started. And a lot of people like to plan things on the first, and I am no exception to that. I find that when I plan things on the first, it helps me get going. It helps me to kind of say, oh, look, this is the time to do it. And I can kind of ride that energy through onto being productive and keeping up the energy, which is really important for me because staying motivated or getting motivated is really hard because sometimes it just feels like, why do you bother? If you just have to do it all again next month or next week or tomorrow. So yeah. So there's that. The Kalendcast, though, specifically refers to the Kalends, which is the first day of the month. It's actually from the Roman calendar, just like the Ides are the 15th and the Nones are the 9th. And I'm a dork, so there you go. And like I said, we like to mark this. And the other thing about this is it's kind of a reminder, hey, check back in, right? It is a matter of, it's a little bit of a public accountability, I guess. And also, it's just helpful to me to acknowledge what happened. It's really easy to look back at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the month and say, well, I didn't do what I meant to do, so I didn't do anything at all. Which is very black and white, all or nothing thinking. Thank you, mental health. Thank you. And those are lies. Those are not accurate. And just because I didn't get things done perfectly or in the way that I would like to does not mean I did not do anything, because I rest assured my busybody ass probably did something. Probably. Or several things. So there's that. But the other thing about it is, making plans is great. And a lot of people like to make plans. I am a planner person myself. And, goals being what they are, intentions being what they are, if you don't reflect on them, if you don't look back and check in with them, you kind of have wasted your time. Because if you're not going to determine, how successful you were, what kind of progress you did or didn't make, I don't understand why you made a goal. Like, goals are made to be measured, right? To be reflected upon and to accomplish. And if you never accomplish anything, or you don't pay attention, seriously. So, looking back at September, I was here a lot. I was, I counted the days out, and it was 4 out of the 30 that I didn't get up here, and do the as scheduled post. I think some of those days I did end up posting something else, basically as a place marker, and me acknowledging, hey, look, I needed to post, I didn't. And there might be more than 4 days that happened, because there were a couple days that I wasn't feeling it. I was sick or tired, or I ran out of time, and I wanted to not break the commitment that I set to show up here, but I knew that I couldn't do the thing that I wanted to do, and so I wasn't going to try and produce something that was lackluster and I was unsatisfied with, because then it would just bug me, and I'd want to take it down or delete it or whatever, or not share it. Which is completely defeating the purpose of making content if you don't share it, ever. It's silly. So there's that. Let's see. And there were a few incidences where I had to catch up and there's that. So I've been better about my promotion scheduling. This is something I do 3 times a month, and I do it, or 3 times a week. And I do it that way because of it's how my life is set up. So that's the time that I have to do it, and it lets I do a couple days at a time, and that is also one of the tests. One of the last things that I do at the end of the day. It's actually past close of business. It's into the evening, and therefore it often isn't done. Or I mean to, and I just don't get around to it. Like, for example, today, it's not been done yet for half. So I'm going to have some bits that are going to be posted at weird times and late because I didn't finish last night, which happens. So there's that. I did a little experimentation with it. I've decided that while I'm fine with how some of the promotions are set up, some of them I don't like to copy. So I decided to do something a little different. Incidentally, also joined a challenge with my friend from Korea, TM. And now that's kind of in the line of get me thinking of, okay, I don't really love these. How can I love these? Oh, by doing this instead. So there's that. Gonna make myself a note that I add this in here, because these notes below, for those who are new here, these notes, they're notes. They're an outline. I'm not reading from them. I'm glancing at them to make sure that I hit all the relevant points, but it's not an outline in that it's bare bones either. It's just some people prefer to read, some people prefer to watch or listen, and so I like to give people options. So, there's that. Trying to see where I did a little bit of vlogging. Nothing I published. Big surprise. I have several drafts that I need to put out. They are partially done. They just need editing or a picture or to be formatted, and then they're good. And I'm probably going to go and put those up as soon as I can. Mostly because they're already written. It's not like I'm going back in time and writing something that was never written, and so it doesn't have anything relevant in it. But of course, I'm not going to send out the newsletters that go along with them because time has passed. And speaking of newsletters, I think I've sent 1 or 2 out. I mean to send one out every week because I have a lot to say. In case you didn't realize that. And I have everything set. I have everything set up just so it's very sixth house Capricorn. Very much so. And that means that either you do it to standard or you don't do it at all. And I'm trying to add some flexibility in there, in that if I can put something out there, in some cases that's okay. Just something, placeholder, this works. Acknowledgement, this works. And other ways, it needs to be what it needs to be. Which is not to be confused with perfection, because I don't need it to be perfect. I don't care whether it's perfect. But if it needs to have these parts in it, these parts need to be in it, because they're like the whole point, or they're, the purpose, or they make it worthwhile or add value to it. So leaving those parts out is really silly and doesn't make good sense. So there's that. My card of the day postings were about 50%, which is better than 0%. And that is just a matter of, I have a very specific system to set all these things up, and if I don't do it, then it doesn't get done. And that's just it. That's just how it works. And the reality is, I have to do everything. Not just one business, but 2. Plus, I have to parent, and I have fuzzies that I have to take care of, and all these other things. And so that means with all that stuff on that plate, stuff starts to fall off. And sometimes it's okay, well, I don't have energy for this. Sometimes it's, I don't have time for this. And those will be the things that just kind of go away, or they get pushed off to the side or made for later. So there's that. I didn't show up as often on social media as I wanted to. I have a set time in the morning, set time in the afternoon where I plan to be there, check in. reply to messages, look stuff, because again, systematized. Everything is systematized. And by the way, if you're like a business human and you have questions about how I have my systems set up or what I do or whatever, yeah, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to tell you. Especially if it helps you set something up better for yourself, because a lot of people don't understand, well, how do you only get on Facebook for 10 minutes? I'm like, because I set a timer and I do this, and that's it. Nothing more. I don't fuss around. I don't sit there, scroll through stuff when I'm supposed to be working. If I'm scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, it's because I'm not working. And I can do whatever I want with my non-work time. Because I'm an adult, sort of. Mostly. So there's that. The sweater, however, is sadly not done yet. And if you give me a second, I'll see if I can find it. It's right over here. It's really like nothing like reaching behind me when I can't see. I didn't actually plan formally to show this to you, but then I said, you know, you should, because it's all well and good to talk about something, but when you can show somebody something visually, yeah, you should do that. And I'm an artist, so duh. Let's make sure I don't pull this sweater off the needles. Oh my god, that'd be terrible. I won't freak out like some people do, but I just want to make sure I don't tangle everything up either. Oh my god, so here we go. Look at this bad boy. So we've got the cable, all is done, and what I have left are the sleeves. And I've got a good long sleeve going here. These sleeves, I have 90 some rounds left, and then and then another 30, so 120-ish rounds. This, because I'm a buxom individual, this is the largest size, which means it's the biggest sweater, which means there's more knitting. And for those who are curious, this right here, so far, 164 hours of work. This is Sport. Sport is smaller than DK. Most people, if you go into a yarn store, the yarn that you're looking at, do I have any yarn nearby? That's a really ridiculous question. Why wouldn't I have yarn nearby? Anyway, Sport is 2-weight. DK is 3. Worsted Aran is 4-ish. There's debates about Aran because it's slightly thicker than worsted, but they usually just get grouped together because it's just easier to do that. And the wraps per inch, I think, is just one off. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, 1, feel free to ask me what that meant in the comments below. I'll be happy to be a fiber nerd and tell you. 2, it's cool. That's fine. Don't worry about it. So, yeah. What was it? First of all, we need to make sure we add the newsletter mention in here. Yeah, I liked, and for those who don't know, so as you can see, this is very imperfect. I'm just kind of spouting off the top of my head. I don't worry about if I say like or if I'm jerky or whatever. I don't care. Fine. If you don't like it, if it's not entertaining, if it's too disruptive, if you can't deal with it, you don't have to watch. And that's fine. Or if you don't want to watch, you can read it. Again, options. In a way. So this is how I am. I don't filter things, as noted from my sailor-like language. I don't filter things. I don't edit things out. The most editing I will do is if for some reason the video is like turned sideways. I've now figured out how I can fix that. Or if it's 2 videos, I will merge them together. Because I hate the part 1, part 2. It just, especially when part 2 is like less than 5 minutes. That means that no, just no. I have a bunch of part 2s, by the way, for other things before I was able to fix. Because it didn't occur to me that there was technology that would do that. And I don't know why I didn't think of that, except for the fact that I'm not a videographer. And video is actually something that's relatively new for me. I've gotten better because I've been hanging out on video on Patreon for the better part of this year. And before Patreon, I was hanging out on Periscope, which I don't do anymore, just by the way. So you won't find me there, don't look. You might find my profile there, but that doesn't do you any good because I don't show up there. Let's see. It was the newsletter thing I had to mention. Sweater. That's where we are. I get lost easily. So I didn't really think I was going to finish the sweater. Each of those rounds right about now takes 10 minutes. And like I said, I've got about 120 left. And so far to date, I think there are 74, 75 that are done. So that just gives you an idea of just the amount of hours it took to do those sleeves. I just hope that it's ready by the time it's cold outside. Also, I'm just really tired of working on it. I'd like to just wear it and just work on the other 16,000 things that I've got pulled up. Yeah, Mount Craftmore is a thing at my house. I have shiny object syndrome and I've got ADD and I just do not like to do one thing at a time. I'm very jittery and very anxiety riddled, and so having options kind of gives my brain something to focus on outside of this nonsense. And then, you know, because it's a physical object, it can calm me down. It's weird. But if you have anxiety, then you probably maybe understand. I don't know. Or not. Everybody's mental health looks different. So there's that. But regardless of that, I've kept up with my project time, which is really great, because all through the summer, that was my big gripe, is because I was going to the gym in the afternoon instead of in the morning, because my little was not in school, and so I didn't have anybody to care for them. I had to go into the gym in the evening, which I hated so incredibly much. But it also meant I was tired at the end of the day and I was done. And by the time I got back, I needed to eat. It was project time. And after that, no, the day's over. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to focus. I don't want to concentrate on anything. Don't want to do anything that requires me to pay attention, because I'm not going to do it. And it's going to take longer and it's going to be a shoddy job. And that's not okay. So I gave up my project time for about 2 months, which was horrid. It also meant I didn't do the homework, which the homework is basically just the backlog of classes, books, very specific information that I want to go through. Some of it's business developmental, some of it's just information I want to learn. Like right now, I'm going through a class that deals with astrology and wealth, money, assets, things like that, and looking at astrology for those things, which is fascinating because I love astrology so much. And I learned a lot, and there's a lot of validating things, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I do that. That's a thing. And so now I get to kind of think outside the box. How can I make this a strength or something that helps me versus something that maybe is not super helpful? So let's see. There was something else. Oh my god, I think I lost it. I don't know. It's gone. I hope it wasn't important. That's what happens when I don't write things down, which is why I will stop in the middle of my videos and write shit down, because I will forget. So, what else happened? Honestly, I flipped through my planner, I thought back on it, and I really couldn't think of much that had happened. I was very focused on trying to stay on task and trying to keep my planner up to date. And I did spend a lot of time transcribing things and migrating tasks, because I meant to, like this morning, I meant to do it last night. I got to the point where I got too tired. I did not have the energy and the mental capacity to focus. And so I said, this is just not going to get done today. Unfortunately, need to get it done. So guess what I got to do almost first thing this morning? Catch up on stuff I should have done yesterday, which is the thing. You know, I like to not leave tasks undone from one day to the next, but the reality is you've got a finite amount of time and you've got a finite amount of energy. There's a point in the day at which you don't have any more energy and you run out of steam. And for me, being a spoonie, that happens very, very early. And anything I get done really is a struggle and a serious, major, huge push. And because it doesn't look like it's difficult, people assume that it's not, but then I become exhausted and then I will pay for it later. So that's a whole thing. Yay! I did get some tincture making done. That I'm super excited about. So the tincture making happened. I feel like that thing that was supposed to come up was bubbling to the surface, and then I started talking and it went away again. But I decided to make some tinctures for magical use only. They are for baneful work, and I have no intention of selling them at this point because they are made from things that are poisonous or toxic. And yeah, like I'm being super careful handling them even, but it's really just can I do this? Does this work? And how does this work out? So I'm really excited about that because I love plants and I don't get to garden very often. The yard is a swamp, which means the plants don't survive. Well, the nasturtium did all right, but nasturtium likes super wet places. But most of the other plants, they just kind of rot. And it's a giant pain in the butt. I don't like container gardening. It's not my thing. I'm not very good at it. I'm actually horrible at it. Let me plant something outside and I can like rock that out. Tell me I have to use a pot. No, I'm good. Never mind. Pass. So there was that. Oh my gosh. It was something to do with magic. I think. That's going to kill me. Another thing I do know that happened is, as you've noticed, well, those of you on Patreon have noticed, everybody else maybe not. I've been bringing a lot more talk about mental health, particularly my mental health, into my work because the reality is I am somebody who deals with a lot of issues, which I will not get into at this current moment. And I'm still an artist. I'm still an intuitive. I'm still a root worker. I still do these things. And just because you have mental illness, just because you have a hard time, just because you're a spoonie, just because you don't have a lot of energy or you have a lot of constraints in your time, whether they're physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever, doesn't mean you can't do things. It means you may have to find another way to do it. It means you may do less of something or you may do something a certain way. But I think there's always a way to do something. There are adjustments that have to be made, but that's life. Like there's always adjustments that have to be made. That's not, a thing that only happens to some people, although it definitely seems like it sometimes. But part of why this is mental health is very important to me. I, as a person of color, my mental health was not stressed to me. And so I took on a lot of things that I didn't need to. I suffered from a lot of trauma that had a very deleterious effect on me. And now as an adult, I'm the hen's coming home to roost. And so now I'm having to deal with things that didn't used to be a thing, but I can very much so see how those events led to here. And part of why I'm here is this is what a real life artist looks like. I'm a little ADD. My ADD isn't bad enough that I can't focus at all, but I definitely get distracted very easily and I will hyper focus as well to the point where time will pass and I won't realize what's going on because I'm just so singularly focused on something. I also have to deal with depression and anxiety. Yeah, I know I said I wasn't going to tell you everything. Whatever, I changed my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind. Ramona Flowers. From what to what? Anyway, I love Ramona. I think I watched that in the last 2 months. I might have to watch it again today. I don't know. So, I gotta wrap this up though soon because I have to scoot out of here and retrieve a tiny human. But because I have a lot of stuff to deal with, I want to make sure that people understand that. The thing about mental illness is a lot of it is invisible and a lot of it's chronic. And with chronic illness, that means you don't get a day off from it. There are times that may be easier. There are definitely times that are harder. And sometimes there aren't times that are easier. And sometimes it's just a baseline. With my depression, I'm always gray. There are definitely times where I'm grayer, all the way down to coal. But even at my best, gray is as good as gets. And because this is my life, it doesn't really bother me. It's what I've known always. I've never known anything else. And so I don't really know what I'm missing. But it's something I have to deal with. It means that I process and deal with things in a specific way. And it means that I have to take certain precautions. It means I have to make certain decisions. And that's just how it is. But just because I have to take those extra steps and have consideration for these things that I personally have to deal with doesn't mean I can't make things. Doesn't mean I can't be successful. Doesn't mean, and I want to remind you of that, because it's really easy to get down on yourself. It's really easy to look around and say, well, everybody else is doing great, and nobody else has kids, or nobody else is married, or nobody else has this, or they have this. And the reality is you don't actually know what's going on with somebody else, and it really doesn't matter. All you need to do is focus on what you're doing, and that's what you can do something about. So remember, you don't know what battles other people are fighting. You don't know what they've been through, and you don't need to. You just need to stay in your lane and do your thing, which is not to say that you need to ignore things and to not acknowledge that things are happening and that certain people have to deal with certain things. Absolutely not. We are very pro marginalized folks and all guises here, and there will be no tolerance for anybody who just thinks that they can ignore that and pretend that's not a thing. I will kick you to the curb in a hot second. But as far as what you can do, I don't need to worry about what my neighbor can or can't do, because that doesn't help me do what I need to do. It doesn't, So remember, you can do it. You may have to find a way. You may need some help. You may need specific support, and it may take you a while, and you may have to switch up how you do things. But there are other people who are like you, who are similar to you, who have some of the same issues or considerations that you have, that are doing it, and you can too. Yay, motivational, or something like that. So, yeah, as far as October, oh my gosh, we got 3 minutes. As far as October, the first thing I want to do is I need to finish up mapping my business for the rest of 2019. It says 2020. We're gonna fix that, so that's not wrong. I had these high hopes that I was going to get the entire quarter set up, and my quarters are set up by season, not by the fiscal year or the calendar year, right? I go March to June, or March to May, instead of like January to March and March to June. Well, yeah, that sounds right. Is that right? No, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whatever. January to March, and then with April to June. Okay, there you go. Yeah, but because I use the seasons, mine are offset slightly. But my goal was, or not a formal goal, but something I saw, this would be a good idea, let's do this. Execution, not so much. Was, hey, get this season's quarter set up, and then on the first day of the quarter, have the next one set up. Like, go and do it then. And that way I could not overwhelm myself by having to set up an entire year at a time, because good gravy, that would take forever. Especially with the way I do things, which is over the top and extra, as per my usual. Yay! But, ducks. I just got lost. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that happens a lot. I also got I had some personal stuff come up. So that was interesting, which means I might have an announcement here in October. I probably am going to have an announcement. Let's just be real here. Because I believe in transparency, and I'm down with like showing up and showing out, as it were. Because, I can deal with being seen to a point. The other thing I'd like to do is I would... I do want to... Yeah, I did. That was right. No. I did want to map my business for 2020. Okay. I see. I put things in the wrong order. So I want to plan 2020. I want to get this quarter set up in my planner, and then go ahead and finish off, which means getting all the stuff I need, all my planners and inserts and everything soon, quickly. So I don't have to do it last minute. Yeah. Otherwise, the goal is to show up here. I'm going to show up here every day. And all of these videos are throughout the entirety of October are going to be public here on Patreon, and I'm going to put them up on YouTube because that's where they're hosted, and I link it to my Patreon. So I'm trying a little experiment to see what happens. One of the things I want to do is, of course, let's bring more people here. Let's have more people to hang out with, because the more the merrier. But I made a commitment mentally, decided that this is what I want to do, so I want to continue to do it, which is to show up here and then, do all of my maintenance, show up on the blog and in my newsletter and making sure I'm doing listings as far as my art goes, because I don't list things in my Magic Intuitive Biz often because I've pretty much got everything set that I want to put up there, unless it's an oil. Sometimes I will add oils, which incidentally I will link to below so you know what I'm talking about. But I would also like to make sure that I kind of get a hold of the backlog that's happened, which is actually one of the things that happened in September. Is my backlog of this isn't done yet, this needs to be done, has gotten freaking huge. Big surprise. So I want to just work on getting through that, which means showing up for work and doing the work when I'm supposed to and not getting distracted or taking off more time than they were. But I do want to take off the time I'm supposed to take off, right? So there's that. So I would love to hear from you. How was your previous month? How did your September go? What have you got planned for October? What are you getting into? You can drop a comment below this video, whether you're on Patreon or YouTube. I will see both of them. And I would love to have you here. Of course, like, subscribe, click the little bell so that, whoa, hey, they put up a new video. Yay! So you can watch it instead of, waiting till you check your email, because if you're like me, you don't ever do that. No. And if you feel called, if you like hanging out with me, come on over to my Patreon and become a patron, because doing, having that support over there means I can continue doing the work that I need to do without feeling like I'm straining myself in time doing things that maybe are just not panning out and doing anything from a fiscal perspective, because money matters. It just does. But you can find all my links below, all of my actual active social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find both of my websites below. And if you like this Patreon and you know somebody else who would, because these are public, share it with them. Post it on your page or whatever. Send it to somebody in the message. And yeah. So I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. What is Wednesday? I like to tell people what I'm doing tomorrow. This is the benefit of showing up on time. Oh! Tomorrow's our Bujo setup. And I'll tell you why it's tomorrow instead of when it was supposed to be. So, toodles, adieu, goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen, so long, farewell. See you tomorrow.